I'm trying to find him. Don't make it squishy, right?
Nothing.
That's good. Yes, thank you.
You okay, Joe? How many more minutes do you need, do you reckon? Yeah. We're just firing all the DJs and stuff up.
Yeah, all good. No stress, guys. No stress.
I think that's a couple of struggles. Yep. You all good?
Susan Lee and Julian Lisa are arriving out for next shows. No, we're not doing that. Just 1 second, we're going to trip over this.
Cool. Thank you. Where are you going?
Oh, what's this one? Susan Lee's
Hi, it's Joe. How are you? Hey, I have no idea where that is, so that could be this night. Yeah, do we want to pull with somebody? Okay.
I think everyone will be in the same boat.
Okay. So move that out. I'll get Lee. But that's my last one.
Yep. Thank you.
Oh yeah, it was so
it hitting? Turn it up.
Bring it my light if you got me. Stand by.
It should turn up, do something.
Oh yeah, that's it. Cooking? Is it okay to sit at 100%? I'll drop it to 90.
Yeah, let's just drop it at 90.
Who's speaking back live?
White balance.
Who wants to pull? I can get cuts. Yeah, perfect. Yep, done.
Yeah.
What's the late?
Hey. 1.5 seconds.
1.5?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. Who are you shooting for?
Good.
Yeah, Sky.
Certainly arriving now.
Hey, come on.
I'm the Sky.
Hiya?
Do you want me to get this and you hunting this lady?
Then we'll reassess. Okay. We'll reassess after.
Just put it down. That's fine. Just put it inside you.
Everyone ready? All right, well, good morning, everyone. My name is David Ossip, and I'm President of the New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies. I want to thank you all for being here this morning under such challenging circumstances. I'm here today with my colleague and friend, Alex Rivchin, who's the co-CEO of the Executive Council of Australian Jewry. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the day that we have long dreaded. This is the day that we have long feared, and this is the press conference that we never wanted to have. Over the past 2 years, we've seen unprecedented acts of anti-Semitism in our city. Synagogues being set alight, cars being firebombed, and houses being defaced. We, as a community, have warned repeatedly that it was only a matter of time until blood was spilt. During the summer of terror earlier this year, we very narrowly avoided this, despite synagogues being set alight, with Jews still inside. But last night, tragically, our luck ran out when our community was subjected to a heinous terrorist attack as we celebrated the first night of Hanukkah, a festival which is meant to be characterized by light and joy. This was a massacre, a pogrom, here in our city, here at one of our most cherished landmarks, Bondi Beach. 16 precious lives taken for no reason, dozens hospitalized, children mowed down by gunfire, fathers and mothers being felled by bullets, the elderly having to take shelter behind trees, lives shattered irrevocably in a single moment, young children who from this point forward will never have a father, parents who have lost their beloved 10-year-old daughter. This is the moment we've arrived at. This isn't something we should ever have seen in Australia. An attack not just on the Jewish community, but on our country more broadly. Thousands of people being subjected to this terror on what should have been a carefree and tranquil summer's evening here in Bondi. 2 years ago, on the forecourt of the Opera House, anti-Semites chanted, "F the Jews," and "Where are the Jews?" Sadly, last night they found the Jews. For 2 years, people have paraded in our streets and universities, calling for the Intifada to be globalized, a catchphrase which means kill Jews wherever you find them. Last night, the Intifada was globalized and came to Bondi. What we've seen has been the logical progression, demonizing Jews with rhetoric, which slowly builds up to acts of violence, and then acts of violence which last night took life. Today, our thoughts and our prayers are with the family and friends of those who are murdered. We're also praying fervently for the swift and complete recovery of the dozens of people who are still hospitalized, many of them in critical condition. We pay tribute to the first responders who so bravely stepped in at great risk to themselves to disarm the assailants and to save life. Friends, the Jewish community is strong and resilient, but today we are shattered and reeling. The onus is now on the authorities to establish that Jewish life is safe here in Sydney and Australia. The world is looking at Sydney and our country as one of the global epicenters of anti-Semitism. And now, after 2 years, this is a moment for strong, unequivocal, and overwhelming leadership. The time for talk is over. We need action. To those who have said over the past 2 years that anti-Semitism has no place in Australia, yesterday should have finally made it clear that anti-Semitism has well and truly found a place here in our beloved country. I thank the countless members of the Australian public who have reached out to offer support and solidarity to the Jewish community. This is a time when the Jewish community desperately needs to hear from you and to hear from civil society leaders. To my community, to the Jewish community, over the past 2 years, you have been asked to show such incredible strength. You've had to draw on reservoirs of strength and resilience that you never should have, that no Australian ever should have. But today I ask you, please keep your head up. We will get through this. Like Jewish communities throughout the ages have handled the travails of their times. Today is the first day of Hanukkah, and I would generally end my remarks by wishing everyone a happy Hanukkah. But obviously I cannot do so today. So on this oh so dark day during the Festival of Lights, may I end with a simple prayer, a simple hope that the light of our Jewish community and our country that we love so much once again shines brightly. Thank you. Alan?
We have suffered an almighty blow here from which I fear we will never recover. We are a community, we talk about that a lot, and what does that mean? A community is but a family of families, and our family was ripped apart. Our family has been shredded. I want to talk about one of the victims of the massacre yesterday to show you what we have lost. He was a dear friend of mine. He was the rabbi here, Rabbi Eli Schlanger. Anyone who knew him knew that he was the very best of us. This is a person who rose each day with a simple mission of doing good, whatever good he could find, whatever kind deeds he could perform. Nothing was too difficult for him. He would drive out to regional parts of the state to sit with prisoners in our jails and listen to their stories. He would drive every day to Waterloo and Redfern to the public housing to sit with the elderly who probably didn't understand a word he was saying, listen to their stories and feed them and ensure they had meals and kosher products in their homes. He was a person who illuminated our lives with his kindness, with his grace, with his generosity. And there is no replacing him. There is none like him. I don't want to speak of his legacy and what we should do in his honor. It's too early for that. In time, we will bury our dead according to the Jewish rituals. We bury our dead as early as possible so that the soul can ascend. Then we will begin our intense period of mourning, the period of Shiva. But I know what Eli would have wanted. I knew him intensely well. I held his newborn baby just 4 weeks ago at the synagogue that he ensured was built. He would want us to celebrate Jewish life. That's all he lived for. To be proud and open as a Jew, to wear his kippah, to lay tefillin in public. And this event that happened here for 30 years was the jewel in the crown of our communal calendar. It's when we got together at the beginning of the Hanukkah festival, at the beginning of the summer, and we rejoiced as a family, as one great collective family. It would have pained him immensely to see our sorrow. He would urge us to fight on and to be proud. And when the time comes, we will stand upright again as Jews and we will prevail. One thing that our history has shown is that those who seek to smash our people, defeat our people, wither and fall by the wayside, whereas we will prevail. And the reason is because we live, we choose life, we celebrate life, and we will always do that. Thank you very much.
David, David, you spoke about the need for action now. What would you like to see from the federal and state governments in response to this?
Thank you for the question. So obviously we've been dealing extremely closely with the New South Wales government, the Premier as well as the Police Commissioner. There is currently a significant security step up around Jewish community institutions. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but the first and foremost priority has to be the preservation of Jewish life. Clearly yesterday there was a failure and 16 beautiful human beings lost their lives and dozens remain in hospital today. Once Jewish life is secure, we then need to preserve Jewish way of life. It's utterly unacceptable that Jewish academics and students on university campuses are being harassed and ostracized and victimized for being Jewish. It's utterly unacceptable that Jewish artists are being doxxed and don't have a place within the creative sphere. It's utterly unacceptable that some of our classrooms are being hijacked for political causes. It's unacceptable that the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for Anti-Semitism has a report dealing with all of these matters, and it's sat on the shelf for all of these months. So those are immediate actions. And then beyond that, we need leadership from civil society to call out and to say that anti-Semitism isn't just a Jewish problem, it's an Australian problem, that they stand with the Jewish community unequivocally. And from our political leaders, we've seen great leadership and moral strength from the Premier, and I think that needs to be mirrored elsewhere on these matters.
By that, do you mean our Prime Minister?
Look, I think the federal government has made a number of missteps on anti-Semitism. I think when an attack such as what we saw yesterday takes place, the paramount and fundamental duty of government is the protection of its citizens. So there's been an immense failure, and an investigation needs to come to grips with how that was allowed to take place. But there's no two ways about it. The federal government was very slow to come to grips with this issue. We haven't seen the leadership at a federal level that we have at a state level. And now more than ever is the moment. If we're not going to step up now and deal with this for the crisis that it is, when are we?
If this report from Gillian Siegel was implemented sooner, do you think this attack could have been prevented?
It's too, there's so much that's still unknown about the attack, so it'd be unwise to comment on that.
One of the recommendations, though, was more security at Jewish events. If there was more security at yesterday's event, do you think the attack could have been prevented?
Look, I don't want to comment too much on the security settings for yesterday, but it's obvious that the greater the security presence you have in an event, the more deterrence it has on would-be assailants.
Had the Jewish community hired additional security for that event? Had they hired extra
I
police?
don't want to go into the security arrangements for that event or any other Jewish communal institution or event.
You've noted the failures a couple of times. What do you see as the greatest failures that led to yesterday?
Look, the investigation which is now underway will reveal it. But the fundamental responsibility and the paramount responsibility of government is to protect its citizens. Clearly yesterday that did not take place. Two individuals who seem reasonably sophisticated were able to set up in close proximity to a Jewish event and to murder Jews in cold blood. Alex, myself and the Jewish community more broadly, we've been warning about the prospects of a mass casualty event for some time. And clearly I think all stakeholders have to reflect on how we've gotten to this moment and how this is allowed to, how yesterday occurred.
Labour MP Josh Burns said that previous attacks on the Jewish community have been minimised. Would you agree with that?
Of course. I mean, we as a community have suffered attempted arson on our synagogues. I mean, one synagogue in Melbourne was burnt to the ground. We very narrowly escaped a mass casualty event when a synagogue in Melbourne earlier this year was set alight with Jews still inside. Despite that, there is a contingent in our community, including leaders, who at every opportunity wish to minimise the Jewish experience, wish to call it a hoax, wish to quibble with anti-Semitism statistics to try to undermine what we're saying. So yes, I think Josh Burns is entirely right. The Jewish community has been through hell over the past 2 years, and notwithstanding all of that, there have still been individuals who've sought to undermine our lived experience. And that has to stop as well, and those individuals who are responsible for that, they need to have a very hard look in the mirror today.
Can I ask you further on that?
The identity of the 10-year-old girl who was killed, Matilda. She attended a Russian school. Just your reaction. This is the youngest victim, a child who was killed in this massacre.
Look, it just compounds our suffering and our tragedy. And everyone in the community knows someone who perished, who was slaughtered. Everyone knows someone who's now fighting for their lives. Every victim is a world destroyed and it can't be repaired. The loss that we've suffered here is immeasurable. And, you know, through the fire bombings and through the doxing and the boycotts and everything that we've encountered for 2 years now, in some ways it's made us stronger, it's made us more determined and more resilient. But this, you don't emerge stronger from this. Something like this, a slaughterhouse, a place where we would come every single year to mark the first night of Hanukkah with joy and with kids' rides and a petting zoo and face painting, and to know that people in our city who live 20, 30 minutes from here looked at that as an opportunity to slaughter, who didn't act out of impulse or opportunism. This was methodical, planned, and designed to slaughter as many people as possible for the crime of being Jewish. This has broken us, but we will rebuild. But more so, this has broken this country. For so long, we've spoken about what we are and what we aren't as a country, but you are what you repeatedly do. And if over a period of 2 years you burn Jewish targets, you harass the Jewish people among you, you seek to expunge the Jews from public life, and then you slaughter the Jews like animals when you have the opportunity, that is what you become. It's just a question for us now whether we collapse and fracture as a society, or whether we drive this evil from our midst, rip it out root and branch, and banish it once and for all.
Is there anything you can tell us about
Oh look, some of their details haven't been released, and that's really for the families to do, but you know, one of them I knew very well. He was an elderly man in his late 80s. He survived the Holocaust in the Soviet Union. And I would see him at communal events, and he would always make a beeline for me with his beaming face, and he would give me a book or give me a word of advice for the media or government. He was a sharp, deeply engaged individual who lived a rich, rich history, who survived Soviet communism and the purges and World War II and the Nazi killing squads, to come to this place and to be felled by the bullet of an assassin. This is a scandal that should shake us all to our core, the fact that we've allowed this to happen. And we have allowed this to happen. This was not an incident in isolation. This is what, as David said, what we've been talking about for 2 years. And we've been talking about it because we know how this story goes. We've seen it as the Jewish people in generation after generation after generation. When anti-Semitism takes root in a society, it's not a passing hatred and idle bigotry. It becomes a quest, a mission, it becomes an obsession, which leads people to do the most inhuman acts. We know this, and we sought to educate the leaders of this country, wider society, because we know where this leads. We know how it rips the country apart. And frankly, we weren't listened to.
Alex, what is the process over the next few days under Jewish traditions? What does that look like in terms of where you go from here the next few days, the next week or so?
Well, under Jewish law, the primary obligation is to treat the bodies with dignity. They'll need to be identified, and some of them were really, the bodies experience such suffering and distress that it will take a while to restore that dignity. We require burial as soon as possible after the time of death, but obviously the forensic process needs to run its course, after which we will begin the burials according to the Jewish rites and traditions. We will then sit through a period of what we call Shiva, a period of immense, intense mourning, where we sit on low seats and we reflect on our pain and anguish. It's a well-honed method of dealing with the highest trauma. Sadly, the Jewish people have ample experience in this. We don't run from our pain, we confront it, we face it in order to be able to truly process it and then move forward, and we will move forward. We're obligated to do so. Tonight is the second night of Hanukkah, and we again are obligated to mark that occasion. It won't be joyous. There is no joy here, but we will light the candles as we're obligated to do to show the victory of light over darkness. But at the moment, it's hollow to say that, because darkness has prevailed. The worlds of our community have been destroyed, but we have to rebuild them.
Alex, what if the gunmen had links to the Islamic State and had been examined by ASIO 6 years ago? What's your response to that?
Well, look, it's not a surprise, because what happened here, as I said, wasn't isolated. It was the product of an ideology that was allowed to fester in segments of this society, incited by clerics in certain cases, by propagandists, by politicians even in certain cases. And so inevitably you will have individuals who act in the extreme and carry out acts of ultra-violence. There's no surprise here. Our security agencies are made up of incredible men and women who get up every day with the sole mission of protecting Australians. We have absolute faith in them. But there are failures, clearly. As we saw with the fire bombings, they weren't detected or disrupted before the fact. And as we see here, there was no ability to identify these individuals, to see that they were on the cusp of mass terror, and the consequence is body bags by the sand.
You mentioned anti-Semitism festering in society in general. How have Australians let down their Jewish community members, and how can Australians step up to help their communities?
In many ways, our fellow Australians have bolstered us. They've stood shoulder to shoulder with us through quiet words and deeds. And so many, I think, want to support us but don't know how to. And ultimately, as David said, when you talk about questions of physical security, national security, the individual is limited in what they can do. We look to government to do the things that we cannot do for ourselves. And paramount among that is protecting life. And this is a failure, a colossal failure. I don't pin this on the Australian people, but what I ask the Australian people to do is to look at what we have become. Look what has been allowed to happen to this country, the greatest country on earth, where we stand here and gather at a scene of carnage at Bondi Beach, where people gathered, families gathered to mark a religious day. We have to change course, and it begins with individual responsibility. If governments won't take responsibility, the individuals have to. We have to ensure that anti-Semitism ceases to be an acceptable, plausible form of intolerance. It is not. It is the worst gutter form of hatred and leads to the greatest of carnage. We've seen that throughout history, and has led to this once more.
I might take one more question.
What would you say to people at home right now who are sad, scared, confused? If they're watching, what would you say to them?
I would say I understand your feelings completely, and as a community leader and as a father, I feel the same thing. You know, as I said, through the fire bombings and everything that transpired, we carried on with our heads held high. We displayed our Judaism with great pride alongside our Australian identities. But last night I was having conversations with my 12-year-old daughter who was petrified. And I was not going to deceive her or lie to her, and I don't deceive the community. There is something to be feared here. When we can't go to the beach and mark Hanukkah in public as we have for 30 years without being mowed down like animals, there is something to be feared. And it is the obligation of society to repair this harm that has been done. Part of it can't be undone and repaired. lives have been destroyed, but in time we need to prevail and we need to rebuild Jewish life in this country. If Jewish life is allowed to wither, it is a victory for the savages that carried out this slaughter. We will not let that happen.
Thank you so much.